resolution mode in the last call, but I think we've got that sorted out now. All right, so also for some of you who've been on some of the previous calls, I've had this problem where sometimes, and it usually seems to be right when I go to do the balancing, where my computer just shuts off. It doesn't go through a shutdown signal. It just shuts off and like completely powers off instantly and goes black, and I have to reboot it. I think I've sorted out what that problem is, but I've also got my laptop powered up here. So if for any reason you do lose me, stay on the meeting and I'll join it from my laptop while the other computer is rebooting, and it should take me less than a minute to get back online. So just stay on the meeting if that happens for any reason. So, all right, hey, well, welcome everybody. So I'm actually thinking this is a really important call, and it's why there's going to be 3 of them. Is that this is like, it's kind of the foundation for all health, is our digestion. And in my opinion, after being in practice for nearly 30 years, 28, that's close enough. So most people have challenged digestion. It might be just a little challenged and they're just not getting, proper absorption. Maybe they're not sleeping as well. Maybe they're aging a little bit faster than they should otherwise. Or all the way to having severe digestive problems, severe food intolerances and allergies, and just having to be really careful about what they eat, and then still having very sensitive, troublesome digestion and so on. So, and there's a lot of factors that go into this. So it is, we could do way more than 3 calls on it. We could do a call a week for the rest of our lives and benefit from it. But I'm going to start with this three call series, and I went to 3 weeks apart on this one, because, well, I kind of felt like the month apart was a bit too far in the other series, and just with my travel schedule, this is kind of what worked out. These are the weekends that I could be home, including today being Easter weekend. One person at least did say, it's Easter, and I said, yeah, I know. I'm traveling the next 2 Sundays, and so, this is when I could do it. So, but the replay really works. So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen I do have a little presentation that I've shared. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. I'm going to share my screen to this and go into presentation mode on here. Yeah, there we go. So you should see, I think, the presentation now, as well as the probably an inset with my video. That's when I've tested this. That's how it works. But I will go back to the video of me once we get through the little lecture part of this, and then for the balancing. So, hey, so I didn't prepare a lot of slides. I just wanted to start with some simple concepts. And so this topic about digestion, the first thing I wanted to say about it is, it's not just one of the systems of the body. If our digestion is strong, that's what gives us a strong body in so many ways. I mean, just from like a Western medicine perspective, we have to absorb nutrients out of our food to be able to build muscle and build other tissues so that we can literally have, enough energy and nutrients to actually build strong muscles so that we can be strong enough to do everything we need to do. And literally, I mean, we're talking about digestion. The stomach meridian is said to be the meridian that carries energy and chi to the body, particularly to the legs. And so, when people complain about not having strong legs, what they're really referring to is that they have weak stomach energy for the most part. Because if the stomach's weak, you don't have enough energy to build muscle. You also don't have the delivery of energy to the legs to make you strong. And then if your digestion is strong and clear, then your mind can be strong and clear, because they're really, really related. And I'm going to go into that just a little bit more here. So first off, the reason I thought there was a lot of topics that I asked about, and this one had as many hits as all of them on the people who completed the survey last month. And I really appreciated the feedback that people gave. That was really good. But I felt like, you know what? Let's start with the digestion here, because it's so much a factor in some of the other issues that people were interested in, like depression and adrenal burnout and immune function and so on. But if you don't have strong digestion, you can't have enough qi, and qi is the energy and the intelligence that drives all body function. So, and this just makes sense. You know, in the womb, we get our qi, or our energy, from our mother. And in Chinese medicine, that's called prenatal qi, you know, just before birth qi. And that's obvious, you know, of course we get it from our mom. But then as soon as we're born, then we have to get all of our qi from our food. And so if we're not absorbing enough energy and enough nutrients and enough qi from our food, then we're not going to have enough. And, you know, fortunately, we're born with a decent reserve capacity of original qi, or sometimes called source qi in Chinese medicine, because it's the source of life, right? So, but we have to be replenishing that every day, or we're dwindling our resources. And most of what we consider aging in society is actually just that we're gradually depleting our reserves of life force. Well, in order to not deplete them, we need to be actually replenishing it on a daily basis, not just, you know, once in a great while. We need to be replenishing our qi on a daily basis. So, you know, there was a whole school of thought in Chinese medicine a few hundred years ago that literally devoted about 200 years of study to exploring better and better ways to treat digestive weakness, with the idea that the digestion is really the middle, it's the core, right? So, and under that theory, if you sorted out the digestion and got the person with strong digestion, then, you know, they would be making enough qi to provide enough qi and energy for the body to function. So, and a lot of other things just kind of sort themselves out. It's not really a complete system to look at that, because obviously there's other imbalances that can be going on. But the idea that they spent 200 years on it meant they thought it was pretty important to be working on the idea of having enough energy as a foundation before you really treat anything else. So here's the idea of what the digestive system does in Chinese medicine. The basic function of the digestive system is to separate the clear from the turbid, or sometimes, you know, different translations say this differently. Sometimes it's separate the pure from the impure. I really like clear from turbid, though. I don't know, that just really captures something for me, and I've always liked that way of translating the basic function. So then what that means on a physical level is we eat food, and no food is totally pure. You know, you eat a salad, and there's going to be little microbes and microparasites on there. You know, it's just a given, right? So it's alive, right? So on a physical level, if our digestion is strong, we should be absorbing the pure parts of the food, or the clear nutrients. That's what we want to absorb. And our digestion should be able to break the food down and then discern what's pure, what's clear, what's actually useful, right? And then absorb that. And then anything that's impure or turbid should be passed through. The small intestine should pass it through to the large intestine, and the large intestine should pass it on out of the body without making a big drama about it, right? So that the impure qualities might be things like parasites, which is on all fresh veggies unless you cook them, right? So toxins that are present in the food, anti-nutrients such as gluten, and you know, there's so much more awareness now about gluten sensitivity, that you can actually get a fair range of gluten-free products in most supermarkets now, because so many people are sensitive to it. But really, it's just an anti-nutrient, and what it does is it inflames the intestinal lining, so that then we've got a lot of inflammation going on and degradation of the intestinal lining. But then there's also a tendency to absorb things out of our food then that we shouldn't, because it's all, the intestinal lining is all inflamed and disturbed and so on. But you know what? Not everybody has that reaction. And I've worked with a lot of people who when I started with them, they had to be completely gluten-free, or they would pay for their for any straying from that narrow pathway of diet, right? So, and look, I'm not a big fan of gluten. I don't think it's good for anybody, really. So, but if you can't tolerate a little bit, that's, to me, an oversensitive digestive tract. And so I do have it as a goal when I work with people to get them to the point where, hey, you know what, they still may choose to avoid gluten, and I support that, right? So they've got a history of it not going down well with their digestive tract. But to get them to a point that if they go to a social event and they have a little bit of gluten, that they don't, you know, have a crisis for the next week of abdominal pain and distress and many trips to the toilet or anything like that, right? So so we should be able to discern the difference, absorb the clear and the pure, and then just pass on the other stuff without a lot of drama, right? So and not absorbing the parasites or the toxins. All right, on a mental level, we should absorb pure or clear, or another way to think about that is useful information, and then reject and discard the turbid or impure information. So, and what I mean by that is that if we absorb negative thinking, you know, negative thoughts and accept limiting beliefs that we're all programmed with to some extent by our society and by our culture and everything, then you know, that's going to give us a poor digestion, as well as negative thoughts, and just the idea of I can't, you know, is a really important thing that comes up for people, right? So, and you know what, this comes up in so many different ways. Like I just talked about how much awareness there is with gluten sensitivity, right? It's, you know, most people are aware that it's a real issue for a lot of people, and a lot of people have come to the idea that, you know what, I do better when I don't eat gluten, right? So, okay, well, that's, you know, that's a pretty strong thing. But you know, if you read the newspaper, every single day there's some other food that we're not supposed to eat because it's bad for us. And then, of course, the day after that, it turns out, oh, there's another study that says we can eat it, right? So the average person wanders through reading about what proper diet is, and just in the newspaper and the news reports and so on, and walks away with either utter confusion because you know, for any given thing, some days it's good, some days it's bad, or a fear of food. And I think this idea that we get a fear of food is really, really important. That you know, for our digestion, is that the more we study nutrition, the more we limit what we think is actually good food, and then we walk into a meal with the idea that I can't digest that, you know, I can't do it, or you know, we're suspicious of the food. Does it have any of a long list of things that we can't tolerate, right? So, and you know, that idea from Henry Ford that, you know, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, either way, you're right. You know, once we absorb negative thoughts and pessimism and beliefs, not only does it cloud our mind, it actually trashes our digestion. So here's an interesting thing. I work a lot in my practice with things like the organs, like the stomach and the stomach meridian and the spleen meridian and so on, and the nervous system and the endocrines and all those kind of physical things. But I also work with the archetypal energies. So, this is what we usually think of as the astrology in the newspaper, but really the roots of it goes back to mythology, and it's a way of describing like the sub aspects of the mind, like the little voices inside. And for me, I mean, we all know Mars is masculine energy, right? When women are from Venus, men are from Mars, and all that kind of stuff, right? So, but it's more than masculine energy. Mars is strength, and it's confidence, and it's this like inner voice that says, I can do this, you got to say that in a deep voice. I can, right? So it's that little voice inside that says, I can, Mars also says, excuse me, it's my turn, right? So I want some of that. And, Mars is the energy. Hey, look, it can be overemphasized, and then we're kind of aggressive, right? Mars can make us over aggressive if it's not balanced. But, the stomach responds well to tapping into that inner voice that says, I can eat that. I'm strong enough. It's just food. And what I find is that it's a very simple thing. It's like a psychological balancing of the stomach. And it ends up being very powerful, because what happens is that we're bringing into the stomach the functional intelligence of I can. And the stomach's job is to break the food down and help to start the process of separating the pure from the turbid, and to realize that's the natural function of the digestive tract. It's not people with miracle digestive systems that can separate the clear from the turbid. It's what's normal for the digestion, right? So it's only when we buy into all sorts of limiting beliefs that we either get taught in childhood or read in the newspaper and whatever, that we start to have this like inner sense of doubt in our mind, which leads to an inner sense of doubt in our digestive system. And then we have to be very careful about what we eat. And I mean, I've done this so often, and I say, okay, well, the next thing we're balancing is the stomach, but then I'm balancing it with the archetype of Mars. And of course the person says, yeah, what does that mean, right? So, and I'm like, well, Mars is that little voice that says I can. And so, it's strength, it's robustness. And so I usually think of this as trying to change the like intelligence of the stomach to be stronger and more robust, more robust digestion. And, maybe not have to be so sensitive on what you eat. And almost without fail, when it does come up like that, then the person says, oh my God, that would be perfect, because I have to be so careful about what I eat, right? So otherwise I really pay for it. So that's the idea. That's, I put these few notes here in the slide to remind myself to talk about this overlap between the physical absorbing and passing through and the psychological, and how much our beliefs play into that. To me, that's a powerful image because it works for me so many times. All right, so here's another thing. Take what is due, right? So this is one of the main spiritual aspects of the spleen and stomach meridians, is to be able to manifest. And so that means not just manifesting chi out of your food. It also means taking from the world that which is rightfully yours. And so the ability to reach out and take from the world that which is rightfully yours, or that which is rightfully due, is a basic spiritual job of the spleen and stomach. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold myself here, so I'm gonna have a sip of tea. So, and that's important because, it's not taking from others, it's taking what you deserve. And, we all know people, and we may even be people that have talent, that work hard, but don't really manifest as much as they should from the world, they struggle more than they should based on their talent and their work ethic, right? So that's not right. So then what that implies then is that self-worth issues are inseparable from digestive strength. And of course, I'm talking about it from a Chinese medicine standpoint with this pain in the stomach, but that has a corollary into chakra theory, because the solar plexus chakra is what regulates the digestion, and our ability to receive is ruled by the solar plexus chakra. So these issues are very much wrapped up with that. So, all right. So, hey, you know what? I'm going to only cover a few more topics before we dive into the balancing, because I want to make sure we have time for a good long balancing, and I'll cover other thoughts about the digestive system, in the next two lectures. But here's a question: is diet important? Yeah, of course. But that said, I find I get better results by clearing negative thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, rather than focusing on trying to figure out, which foods are the bad foods, right? Which ones are the trigger foods, and so on. There's a certain amount where eliminating, some of the trigger foods can be useful, right? But there's a dangerous and slippery slope here, is that if we take the standpoint that it's the bad and evil food that's responsible, then we're not looking at the right thing. We're not looking at what's paralyzing the functional intelligence of the digestive system. What's the thoughts, emotions, and belief structures that are keeping the right amount of energy from going into the digestion to do its job, right? And there's at some point where it just gets to be absurd. Some people are so sensitive, their digestion's so weak, that they have a very, very short list of foods that they can eat. And, it can be next to impossible to eliminate all of them. And if you're trying to do that, it totally ruins your social life. You can't go out to a party. You can't go out to a restaurant. If you've got a really short list, you just have to stay home all the time and make all your own food. And, again, it's understandable, and I get it. And I've worked with so many clients with really sensitive digestion, and they've got a very short list of foods that they can eat. But you know what? When we start to talk, it turns out that there's life situations that they can't stomach. There's a dynamic going on with their work or with their relationship or with their family or whatever that is just really intolerable, and they're not able to say, hey, I'm angry, that doesn't work for me, or that, to change the situation in some way. But what's really going on is there's a life situation that they can't stomach, and that is causing them to not be able to stomach a long list of foods. And you know what? One of the classic examples of this is that, I've had a number of midwives train with me over the years. And one of the things I've gotten from them is in terms of like whether or not women are able to nurse their babies well. And whether or not, and what I really mean, does the child spit up a lot? All right. And the real thing that's going on there is not mother's milk. That's the best possible food. But what usually happens is the midwife will say, okay, well, let's see what's going on. Show me how you nurse, right? So the child's being breastfed, which is obviously the best, but still spitting up mother's milk all the time, which doesn't make any sense in terms of quality of food, right? So, but then what's going on is that there's a lot of noise going on. The lights are really bright, the radio's on, or the TV's on, or loud, and it's just too much going on. And the little baby, for a baby, the whole idea of focusing on the suck, swallow, and getting that latch and doing the swallowing and all of that coordination, that's a big deal. And it can't focus on that well if there's a lot of distractions going on, or if anybody's talking to the baby or even making eye contact with the baby. It's just distracting. So what will happen to cure the food intolerance to mother's milk isn't to somehow magically change mom's milk. It's to turn the lights down. It's to turn the TV off, to control the sensory overload. And, nobody talk to the baby. Let the baby focus and just be in its own little world there. And so these things are environmental. It's a life situation that the baby can't stomach. And the baby can't spit out the blaring TV and the bright lights and all the stimulation without spitting out the milk. Because the circuit, the mental circuit of functional intelligence in the body, of spitting out either a situation or food, is ruled by the stomach intelligence field, or the stomach meridian is another way to put that. So that's what I find more useful. That said, I'm going to do one slide on really, really basic principles of diet from Chinese medicine. Obviously, we could write a whole book about this. In fact, I intend to write a book about it someday, right? But here it is on a slide. Overly sweet food injures your spleen meridian, and the spleen meridian is what regulates your digestion. So by overly sweet, I mean sugar, flour products like bread, crackers, and pasta, or fruit juices. So, hey, vegetables are sweet, but they're only a little sweet. Meat is sweet, but it's not overly sweet. And, a lot of people think fruit is healthy, and a little bit of fruit can be healthy, right? It's fresh and all of that, right? So, but, to make one glass of orange juice, you got to juice 3 oranges. And eating 1 orange is one thing. You wouldn't sit down and eat 3 oranges just as fast as you possibly could. It's just like an overkill on the sweet. So limiting overly sweet food helps your spleen. Cold food and drink injures the kidney meridian, and the kidney meridian is what stores your reserve life energy. So avoiding cold things, having warm food and warm beverages helps your kidneys. So that's a health tip. And then stale food, and that means processed food, anything that comes in a packet, right? So has calories but little chi. So, eating stuff from like, the strategy in American supermarkets is from the outside of the store, because they always have the produce and the meat and dairy counters are always like around the perimeter of the store. And then on the inside aisles is where all the canned and boxed food is. And canned and boxed food is, it's like emergency rations for emergency times, right? It's always good to have a little. Well, I used to live in Hawaii. We always had like a pantry full of food in case there was a hurricane, right? So, but that's all it's good for. It's not good for actually getting chi. It has calories, but it doesn't have life force, right? So it doesn't really nurture you. So limiting overly sweet food and limiting cold food and drink, and eating mostly fresh food. If you do those 3 things, that's the most important thing. So beyond that, then the next most important thing is the really important thing is to work on your beliefs and emotions and so on. So that's the idea with that. And oh, by the way, if you cut out bread, crackers, and pasta, you're going to cut out gluten. So, which is a huge irritant for a lot of people, right? So the more you cut those things out, then gluten becomes a problem of the past, really. So, all right. So, hey, with that, I'm going to go into doing the balancing, right? So I'm going to use the Aconnect Health Map and muscle checking to intuitively find things to balance. And then I'll talk about what is coming up for me and then tap to help it change. So I'll be tapping for the group. If you want to tap yourself, you can. It's optional. And to do that, tap over your head to stimulate the brain and nervous system to kind of like wake up around this issue. And then tap over your heart to stimulate the heart energy center, which regulates all of the acupuncture channels. So it's just a way to kind of get the nervous system and the meridian system to focus on whatever it is we're doing. And if you're not on the call live and you're listening to this on the replay, then it'll still work, but I feel it's more important to tap yourself during the balancing to really tune into the energy. And I'll mention when to start tapping if you want to, and when to stop. So with that, I'm going to go back to the video. I think you can probably all see me. Okay. Hey, before I go into the balancing, somebody typed in a question. So there is, if you move your mouse around the video screen, then you can actually see that there's a little chat icon, and if you click on that, it opens up the chat window there. So exactly how does cold food and drink injure the kidney meridian? All right, well, you know what, that's a good question, and let me answer. There's two parts of that. So is that one, the stomach will cease working until whatever's put in there warms back up to body temperature. So if you drink some ice water, eat some ice cream, something like that, it pulls the temperature of your stomach contents down significantly below body temperature. The stomach will not do its muscular contraction thing as long as it's cold. It will wait to warm up to body temperature when we do that. And one of the ways this affects the whole digestive system is that all the pieces of the digestive system are connected by what's called the enteric nervous system. It's a little branch of the nervous system that actually connects up all the different pieces of, like, the stomach, the large intestine, the small intestine, and it governs the secretions. It also governs the muscular activity. So when there's a coldness that enters the stomach, what happens is that not only does the stomach stop, but all activity, all movement in the whole digestive tract stops until the stomach warms back up to temperature. Now, what's behind the stomach is the renal arteries. Those are the arteries that go to the kidneys. And so where the heat comes from is it comes directly out of the renal arteries. And so you actually chill the kidneys, and the kidneys generate all the fire in the body. So you're actually draining kidney fire in order to warm up your stomach. So, somebody asked, why do I crave cold food, especially drink? It's an imbalance that there's probably some aspect of heat in the system somewhere. And that's why you're craving that refreshing. Sometimes it's a bit of a dehydration thing, and the cold water just makes us feels wetter, basically. So, but it's not good for you. It represents another imbalance in the body, but trying to quench it with cold drink or cold food is the wrong way to do it. If your body's hot, take some clothes off or take a shower. Don't put some ice water in to try to cool it from the inside. So, and I just, I'm going to go ahead and tell this before I go into the balancing. But my teacher in Hawaii, Dr. Angela Longo, who you founded the acupuncture school where I went to school. She, had a big thing about the idea of doing getting people to not drink cold beverages, right? Because of what I just said. It depletes your chi, it ruins your digestion, and if you're not getting good energy out of your food, how are we going to balance anything else in your body? So, this idea that, look, what you do with acupuncture and herbs and so on is mostly you're trying to balance where the chi is in the body and make sure that every meridian is getting the right amount and so on. But if you're not making enough chi, you don't have anything to work with, right? So you can't balance something that isn't there. So working with the with the digestion is always a core. And of course, when men come in, men like me like to drink beer, right? So, and now I live in England. You go to the pub, and the beer isn't really cold. It's about maybe it comes out of the tap at probably about 10, 12 degrees centigrade, which is like a little over 50 degrees Fahrenheit, for those of you who use Fahrenheit, which I grew up with. But you know what? We drink beer in America at like 2 degrees centigrade or like 35 degrees Fahrenheit. It's really cold, right? So and we're attached to drinking cold beer. And so when Dr. Longo would say, right, I want you to not drink any cold beverages, of course, the first answer is like, well, what about beer? You have to drink beer cold, right? So, and her response was, no, if you got to drink beer cold, then don't drink it, right? So it's like, oh, well, how does that make any difference, really, And she said, look, here's an image, right, of how much energy it takes your body to warm up that cold beer once you put it inside. The next time you want an ice cold brewski, what I want you to do, now do this at home, not out in public, mind you, right? So is go get that beer out of the fridge, take it over to the sofa, and then take your trousers off, take your underwear off, and then put that beer right between your legs, right up against your cojones, and see how long it takes before it's comfortable. And I don't know if anybody ever did that based on her advice, but it's an image. You can imagine putting a cold beer right between your thighs. It's going to take forever to warm up, right? So it's not good. So it's taking life force away from you. We need to clear the fire somewhere else, right? So all right. Hey, with that, let me go ahead and go into looking at the health map and starting to do the balancing here, because I have actually talked great questions, but I've talked a little bit longer than I kind of intended to, and I don't want to run too much overtime. So, all right. Okay. The first thing I'm getting is the fire element, and so not just like one of the fire organs or whatever, like the heart or the small intestine or whatever, but the whole fire element. And one of the concepts in Chinese medicine when describing the digestive system is that your stomach is like it's like the fire of your chi burning stove, basically, right? So, and that's why you don't want to put cold things in there, as you put the fire out. So having what warms the digestion, and warmth gives activity as well, is fire. So that's the first image that comes to me. It's not the only thing we're balancing. I'm getting something else to come along with this. So I'm getting the crown chakra. And there's another piece. You know what? I'm getting the liver. And in a sense, the liver plays an indirect role in the digestion, but when the liver's tense, it can really mess up the digestion. And lots of what we think of as digestive problems, particularly things like excessive burping, indigestion, sour burping, and so on, or whatever, pain in the stomach. A lot of those things are actually the liver meridian producing tension into the stomach itself, literally into the physical stomach. And so it does play a huge role. But the actual image that's coming up is with the crown chakra. The crown chakra also is the acupuncture point at the top of the head. The governing vessel 20, which is right at the crown of the head, is the same thing as the crown chakra. It's just different terminology. But that is also the end point of the liver meridian. There's an internal pathway from the liver up through the eyes and then up to the very top of the head. And so in that sense, both the crown chakra and the liver have this thing about um, holding a belief that we have a path in life, and that our path is important. Look, I'm getting British pronunciation there, path instead of path. It's rubbing off. So anyways, but that's a self-worth thing. The idea that we actually do have a path, and that we should have strong digestion so that we can grow into it and so on. I kind of feel like this balancing is starting from that perspective of actually balancing the liver, the crown chakra, and then the fire element is to believe that there's a path for us, and so that we send warmth to the digestion. That's the hit that I'm getting. So yeah, no other pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and tap that. So liver, crown chakra, and then the element of fire. And I'm going to go ahead and tap for the group. And if you want to tap yourself, then now would be the time. So, or if you're listening to the replay. Okay. That's tapped long enough. So if you've been tapping, you can stop tapping. All right. The next thing I'm getting is a belief. Okay, so the belief that's coming up is it's better to give than receive. And this comes up a lot for me, and that's why it's in the list of the Connect belief systems, is that this speaks directly to an imbalance of worry energy in the body, worrying about other people more than yourself. And of course, giving is nice, but receiving is nice too. And, in most things, we should take turns. I give to you, you give to me. I give to you, you give to me. If I always insist on being the giver and always making you the receiver, and then I have this idea that that's superior, that makes me superior to you, it's actually not kind. It's actually a form of domination. But it comes from an apparent place of self-deprecation. Oh no, nothing for me. I'll do all the giving or whatever. This is a very common belief that disrupts the digestive system as well as the immune system. It's a huge factor in taking energy away from the immune system. And I know this call is about digestion, but I don't think I've ever worked with a cancer patient where we didn't work on this belief on many layers in different areas of the body and so on. So just hugely important. So, and of course, anything that imbalances the worry emotion imbalances the spleen, because in Chinese medicine, the spleen governs the emotion of worry. So if we worry too much, it weakens the spleen. If our spleen's out of balance, we worry too much. And it's the spleen that actually, from a Chinese medicine point of view, actually coordinates and regulates the whole digestive system. So including, I talked about that enteric nervous system thing. That's what regulates the rhythms of the digestion. In Chinese medicine, it's the spleen that gives that rhythmic energy. So, that's the intelligence that drives all of that. So anything that weakens the spleen is bad for your digestion. That's the takeaway on all of that. So, there is more. So we got the belief it's better to give than receive. I'm getting the pancreas, and of course, a lot of the functions in Chinese medicine, the spleen is really the pancreas. So I think it's probably a mistranslation is how I understand it. So from the Chinese. Um, and you know what? One of the words that's coming up with the pancreas, like one of the common things of like one of the intelligence issues for the pancreas is to help us adapt, you know, like on a physical level, to be able to adapt to whatever we've eaten and give us steady blood sugar is a pancreatic function. So, but then that whole mental state of adaptability is then governed by the pancreas. So, so that idea is coming up with that as well. I'm also, you know, on the heels of getting the belief about it's better to give than receive, we can be over adaptable. You know, this idea of, oh, no, I'll give up what I need. I'll give up what I want. And that can just be rest. So in order to sacrifice for other people or whatever, right? So, and that's so easy to do. So like today, it's the second to last day of spring break for my son, Max. He's 9, right? So, and we've got a theme park that we have a free pass to, like an annual pass, that we can go as often as we want, basically. And it's a 15-minute train ride from us, so it's really handy. So we were going to go down there. My son really wanted to go, and of course I like to take him and everything like that. But I woke up feeling still sick from this cold that I got, and so I had to say no to him. Hopefully we're going to go tomorrow. I think I'm better enough, right? So, but like it was really hard for me to do that. There was a part of me that wanted to say, oh gosh, you know what? He's 9. You know, I want to have good times with him. I wanted to have good memories of me and all that kind of stuff. And I was like so close to just like taking some kind of cold remedy, you know, to suppress the symptoms so that I could go. When what I really needed to do was rest. And so I rested. But, you know, I did the right thing, but it was hard. And I think we can all, you know, I just feel like giving a concrete example of what that can look like makes it more real. We do that kind of thing all the time, is put our needs aside, you know, for others. So, so that belief, better to give than receive, pancreas, adaptability to, you know, being adaptable is good. Being over adaptable is not good. It costs us chi and energy. So, there's another piece to this. Oh, masculine, feminine brain. So this is balancing the two sides of the brain, but it's also balancing the two sides of the mind, the masculine and the feminine. The feminine is, what do we need to do? The feminine is like, oh, everything's perfect just the way it is. We can just make do with how everything is right now. It's the masculine that says, if it ain't perfect, you got to fix it, right? So it doesn't even have to be really broken. Only if it could improve at all. It doesn't even have to be broken. We got to do it. We got to fix it. We got to change it, right? So bringing a balance into that is a good thing in the context of this other belief. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So the belief is better to give than receive, the pancreas, and then the masculine, feminine brain. I'm going to go ahead and tap for the group. If you want to tap yourself, or if you're listening to the replay, go ahead and tap now. All right. All right, that's good. If you've been tapping, you can stop. I'm going to go on and look for the next thing. So, Hmm. The first thing I'm getting is oneness. So this is connecting to that part of us, the part of our subconscious that knows we're connected to everybody and to the universe and to God. But that's our subconscious. The rest of our mind just wants to believe that, right? So we're connecting more deeply into that part of the subconscious mind that knows. Huh. I'm getting the Wei Qi next. So the Wei Qi is like a surface energy field that insulates us from the rest of the world. So you know, when it's cold and windy out, it helps make the pores in our skin tighten up, so that it makes a better protective layer. It also shields us from other people's thoughts and emotions. Um, and that's important in the context of digestion for, well, a couple of reasons anyways. One is that, you know what, if we feel somebody else's emotion, then it's harder for us to stay in our own boundaries. So it's hard to say no. And, you know, a lot of people aren't very good at it. It's hard to have your boundaries and say no. But if when you say no, you actually feel the other person's disappointment because you're a bit too empathic, because your Wei Qi is not strong enough to shield you from feeling their emotions, it just makes it all the much harder to actually say no. But you got to say no sometimes to say yes to yourself, right? So there's that idea of, like, you know, setting boundaries is much easier when you have good Wei Qi. So the other is when we have emotions or when we have thoughts, we basically process it through our digestive system. So, and that's why, I mean, most people can relate to this. You have a super emotional day, like a really traumatic day or whatever, and then the next day your digestion's totally off, right? So you're maybe having diarrhea or something like that. You know, it's sort of like the bottom fell out of your world kind of thing, right? So, and what's really going on is that your digestive system has gotten overwhelmed with processing an overwhelming amount of emotion. If you absorb other people's emotion into your system, now you're stressing your digestive tract, because once you've absorbed it, it's yours now. Didn't have to start out as yours, but if you absorb other people's emotional energy, then you actually will generate in your body the chemicals that correspond to those emotions, and then you will process and eliminate those molecules of emotion through your digestive tract. And you know, who needs that? Who needs that constantly weakening the digestive system? So let me just see if there's anything else. So, you know what, there is. I'm getting the defense balancing. And in AccuNect, defense refers to a procedure that we use to balance the immune system, is its primary utility. And you know, hence the word defense. But it really balances the liver and the spleen. And at a spiritual level, it's balancing the sense of self-worth in the liver and the sense of self-worth in the spleen to give enough energy to those meridians to make the immune system function. Well, both of those meridians control the digestion as well. So you know, I said earlier in the little lecture part of it about how the self-worth issues is what really drives our digestive strength, right? So what I'm getting is, you know, we're balancing defense not just for immune function, but for digestive strength by addressing the self-worth in the liver and the spleen, trying to strengthen the Wei Qi so that we have better energetic boundaries with the world. And then the other thing, the oneness. You know what? There's nothing like tapping into the part of us that knows we're one in order to remind us that everybody else is one too. And then we worry less about other people. And it's when you worry about other people that you actually open up your Wei Qi and let their energy in. It's when you care too much, when you are trying to fix their lives rather than let their life be between them and the universe, or between them and God, right? Um, so I like this. This is very, very much um, along the lines of what I feel really strengthens the digestion is to get clear on who you are and what your boundaries are. So oneness, Wei Qi, and the defense. And I'm going to go ahead and tap for the group. If you'd like to tap yourself, or if you're listening in on the replay, now's the time to tap. Excuse me. Okay. Yeah, that's complete. So you can stop tapping now if you were tapping. And I'm going to go on to look for the next thing. So. Okay, so the next thing I'm starting with is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus it's behind here. It's like just above the pituitary. So it's deep within the brain, and it monitors the state of many, many, many functions in the body, and it does play a role in stimulating digestive motility. Digestive motility refers to the rhythmic contractions of the digestive tract, the stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestine. And so giving enough energy into those things is really one of the functions of the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus can also can also get involved with putting us into fight or flight mode and defensive behavior, and basically being a bit over vigilant and thinking that the world is a little bit too dangerous. And so that's the sense I'm getting. This is of balancing the hypothalamus, to not be so such a sensitive trigger for the fight or flight nervous system, because obviously when we go into fight or flight nervous system, there's no energy for digestion, or very little. So depending on how strongly the fight or flight nervous system activation is, the digestive system is going to either be shut down, or energy to it will be limited. So we're getting that, and then I'm getting external energy. And you know what? I'm actually getting to like a thing, and what's popping up right away is food. So that whole concept I was talking about of fear of food, which I think is like rampant in our culture. We get so paranoid about what we can and can't eat that we paralyze our digestion literally before we even begin, and then no wonder not very much stuff goes down and sits very well, right? So because if the hypothalamus goes into, oh my God, what's that, right? So I've got to be on high alert because there's food out there, right? So then it's not giving energy to the digestive system, and things are going to stagnate and back up and cause inflammation and all those things. So oh, you know what, as I said the word inflammation, I'm kind of getting a hit that the previous balancing that had the defense, which does regulate the immune system, a huge problem for people is inflammation in the gut, in the intestines. So balancing inflammation by balancing defense is a huge aspect of beginning to improve digestion. So and limiting overreactivity. Okay, so hypothalamus, food, I'm getting this idea of fear of food. I'm not getting anything else to add into this mix. No, that's what we're going to do. So hypothalamus, and then food, and this image of overcoming kind of a subconscious reaction in the hypothalamus that produces, essentially a fight or flight nervous system response to too many foods. What's interesting about allergies, including food allergies, is that they're really a state of mind. One of the interesting things that's been studied is that, people with true multiple personality disorder, where in response to some traumatic event, they actually do have like an alternate personality that can take over their body. There's cases where one personality has an anaphylactic allergic reaction to a particular food or substance, and another personality that can take over the same body does not have an allergic response to that substance. And we think something that's an anaphylactic allergen is just hardwired. You're born with it, it'll never get better. It's just what it is. And there's research that says otherwise. In my experience is that it's otherwise. It's an emotional state. It's a mental state. So okay. All right, that's complete. If you were tapping, you can stop tapping. All right. I am getting to do something else, so let me go see what that is. Okay, I'm getting the archetype of Mars, which I talked about in the lecture. And then my eyes running right up to the stomach there, and I'm getting a yes on that. So we've got Mars to the stomach. I kind of already explained what that means. So, yeah, you know what? That's what we're getting, Mars to the stomach. And, just a quick image came in is that, again, Mars is like that voice of, yeah, I can do this, right? I'm strong enough, yeah. Um, and it allows us to say, I can eat that. But then there's also, like this image that, a real man wouldn't care if there was, if it was a dirty glass or something like that, right? Because, hey, my immune system's strong. And, that can sound like an overly macho, stupid thing. But there is actually research that shows that people who live in protected, sterile environments have much weaker immune systems than people who, are exposed to more dirty environments and, are out in the yard playing in the dirt, and that they're really exposed to many more microbes in their daily life, that they have much healthier immune systems. And, the standard theory on that is that, their immune system is getting stimulated and getting exposed to things so that it can train up, if you will, right? So the other thing I think of is that when you live in fear, that there's microbes everywhere, and microbes on your food, microbes on the counter, microbes here, right? So when you live in that kind of fear, that paralyzes both your immune system and your digestive system. So the idea of really like robust digestion And hey, as long as it's decent food, and it's warm and it's fresh, it's warm and fresh. There we go. And well, okay, well, not warm bread. You can eat too much of that, and that's sweet, right? So, but warm, fresh, not overly sweet food. Wow, let me at it. Let me. I can handle that is the idea. So, and to take the fear out of the digestive system. Excuse me. All right, so Mars to the stomach. I'm going to tap. If you want to tap yourself, or if you're listening to the replay, tap now. This includes, sometimes people have such weak stomachs they can only eat a very small meal, and then if they eat more than that, they get sick. That's too weak, not advocating overeating and eating huge meals, but if you have to be very, very sensitive about how much you eat in a meal, or you have severe digestive distress, you need more robust digestion. You need Mars to the stomach. So, all right. That's complete. So you can stop tapping if you were. All right. Hey, you know what? That's what I'm getting for the balancing today. So that's kind of the end of the session. I'll just I'll wait for a minute to see if anybody types a question into the chat window. The other thought I had is like number one. Hey, I really appreciate everybody's enthusiasm in this. I've gotten a number of comments from you. From different people emailing me saying, thank you so much for doing these. They're really good. And I found that they've been really good for me as well. And so it works for me on a lot of levels. I feel like it's a way to keep building interest in Acunect. And it's consistent with my path of focusing more on training instructors and less on traveling everywhere to teach. So that's awesome. And hey, I want to encourage people to go ahead and share the sign-up link with other people. I mean, we've done the first call, but there's 2 more. And so I'll have the replay up by the end of the night tonight, and it can always join. And I'm saying that one of my students who's actually on the call told me a great story this week, is that she had a friend with like a frozen shoulder, and so this was leading up to the neck and shoulder call, which was 2 weeks ago. And so she said, hey, you might want to check this out. It's my teacher, and they're really good calls, and it might help you. So, and this woman was out of work because her work demanded that she have mobility in her shoulder. So it was a bit of a physical job. And so she did sign up for the call, and but my student didn't hear anything from her for a little bit. So she emailed her, some days later, and just say, hey, did you do the call? How was it for you? And she said, just a lot of the things that I said, and the balancing and so on, she really took it into a meditation afterwards and saw how she was shouldering responsibilities of other people, and went back to work the next day. So that's awesome. And she's never studied Acunect, and, it's just like really, coming to that from that. So I love those kind of stories. So, all right. Okay, so somebody asked, do I think of raw food in a similar way to cold food? Yeah, pretty much. Raw food is something that in Chinese medicine should be limited, because it consumes energy from your body, and it's going to typically be cold when you put it in. So that said, it doesn't mean you have to totally overcook your food. You know, the idea of a quick stir fry cooks the outside of the veggie, but it's still crunchy on the inside. And so it's warmed up. The outside is cooked. They kill all the microbes by cooking the outside like that. But it's still fresh. It's still crunchy, right? So lightly steaming your vegetables, you know, just cooking your vegetables a bit is enough. They don't have to be pressure cooked, right? So there's a balance point there. Okay, so all right. So I have another technical issue to work on for next time of my voice getting loud and soft. I'll work on that. Also, there's something going on with the autofocus on the camera, which I thought I turned off because I saw that my video was going focused and fuzzy off and on there a little bit. But we'll work that out. So, all right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in 3 weeks. So, all right. Take care.